Hey folks, MasakoX here. We interrupt your scheduled build-a-baddie villain saga thing for a special request from one of the channel's regular viewers, the Stargazer, who essentially wanted us to create a Demon Realm character, remembering when we created both the team and the Divine Trio for Universe 13, in case they were involved in the Tournament of Power. That was composed of Tiha the Kai, Agava the Angel, and Medea, the three-faced god. This in turn coming off the back of the Super Anime's unused sketches, all from when they were designing angels for the Tournament of Power, and a potential Universe 13 being part of the roster. We just sort of ran with that even more. Check out that video up top for that specific outing. But as for the original query for this video, yes, we will do that. Actually, we shall see that debt and raise it threefold. Exactly the same number of times as the guys went to the future in the Goku Black Saga. We are going to create one Makaioshim, one Demon Realm Deborah-esque individual, and one weird demon-like entity thing like Janemba. Why do we like making these characters? Well, truth be told, we don't get many opportunities to do so outside of the what ifs, and this place is a great example of flexing our creativity without thinking of major ways of maybe shoehorning these things in. This isn't our first time when it comes to conjuring up malevolent beings either. We already made a demon recently with the likes of Pazuzu. Check out the video up top. But these beings were so underutilized in the main storyline that we could use many inspirations for these ones. And to make this even more interesting, we could go to 3 different cultures for inspiration. Since we know that Dragon Ball likes to pick and choose different cultures for source material. If you like what we come up with, do leave us a like and subscribe for more Dragon Ball deep dives. Thank you. Now, first of all, let's start with the easiest entity for us, a typical Demon Realm inhabitant, but with an interesting inspiration, which is not your typical Deborah carbon copy. He isn't going to have a majorly big chin. We're going to be going to Central America for this one. In Mexican culture, there are a lot of demonic or ghostly brides within its folklore to seek ideas on this front. To name but one, there is La Llorona, the Weeping Woman. Long story short, she is traditionally, in most stories, a woman who is supposed to have drowned her own children. Lovely. Only to be rejected by the man that she loved. A very ironic and tragic story already. Do note, there are many versions of this story, including one with post-colonial undertones. But because of this rejection, and the heinous actions she had undertaken previously, this all leads to her unaliving herself. Subsequently, she's doomed to roam the world forever, pointlessly looking for her lost progeny, constantly weeping, hoping for their return, or for her to find them and no longer be alone. There is also La Pascualita, apologies for the pronunciation, which is essentially a mannequin that is supposed to be an embalmed being of a woman who was supposedly bitten by a spider or a scorpion on the day of her wedding. And finally, there is La Planchada, the Iron Lady. Now, contrary to the name, she didn't get crushed by a giant iron when it came to her unaliving, but instead, similarly to La Llorona, she was either rejected by a doctor or was a disgruntled nurse who poisoned her patient. She allegedly appeared in a nurse's outfit from 1930 through to 1960, perfectly ironed. And speaking as somebody who has never done any ironing in his life, that's something you'd notice. Now, as you can tell, the common tone with all of these entities are that of regret, bitterness, and sorrow. Very overwhelming, primal emotions which are really strong, that they carry the soul through the afterlife and create a relentless existence post-living. So, while those stories are a little bit dark and they can be more ghostly than your typical demonic tome, in various cultures those lines are kind of blurry, we thought that there was something rather striking about a white-gowned femme fatale. So in this case, the folklore would serve us well for a visual inspiration, rather than an exact set of powers directly specifically. So for this Demon Realm lady, we would have a pale blue and tattooed complexion, with small horns and eyes similar to Deborah. You gotta remember that just because we're going a little bit further away from the Deborah archetype and less of the chin, we've got to have some common traits going at least, those being the eyes. That way, you know what you're getting yourself into. As for her power set, she would basically be able to create hostile projections from her own opponent's ki. What does that mean, Masako? You mean use their enemy's energy against them? Sort of, yeah, but like their inspiration, this would be done in a much more gruesome and cerebral manner. Remember, Dragon Ball doesn't really do much in terms of the mind, so we want to actually play on this. Basically, this technique would wind up creating twisted doppelgangers of the enemy. Think of the alternates from the Mandela catalogue, as well as other apparitions that could work against a baddie, which would drain power from an enemy, or worse still, completely drain them of any means to fight back. If you can't make them weaker, take away their desire to fight back. You just get that with Goku, and if you just take away his will to fight, you just give up. These magical constructs could specifically represent fears, negative emotions, and all sorts of nefarious and dastardly things that may not actually triangulate to a particular enemy. This would be all within their own head. They wouldn't know where to start. This demon's sole existence is to degrade, horrify, and weaken the faculty of people. Now, she's gonna have a weakness, and as for that, it would be the fact that she is not really able to connect to more than one person at a time. She can't use this as an AoE move and take out multiple people, but has to carefully choose which person to focus on, who would be the most effective, and commit to that until the desired effect had been reached. She can't just jump from one person to another quickly, like just go like that, and that. She could not use it on Vegeta at the same time to compound the Dragon Team struggles. She would have to switch opponents, which takes important time, and it would destroy all of the previously generated alternates, because if you move from one to another, that first existence gone is a complete reset. Now, given this as a really potentially bad weakness in Dragon Ball, it would be best for her to try and keep a great distance from her enemies. She's not a being that would work well in the heart of a traditional battle, close quarters. But if you wound up in her sphere of influence accidentally, she would encircle you and bring you down. If you want a similar example from Dragon Ball, think Dokuri from Universe 4. She was a really cool villain actually, very underrated. And when it comes to the name for this one, it's a challenge, since demonic characters in Dragon Ball don't follow a single naming convention that fits within Toriyama's archetype. So we're going to aim to keep this coherent with the trio instead. We're going to name them after the three evils of Japan. I'll leave more information about the three evils of Japan in the description. If you want the short version, they're the three most evil yokai in Japan. In the case of our bride, we would refer to Talono no Mae, the kitsune, for inspiration. This one's the most famous kitsune in all of Japanese mythology, who, amongst other things, caused Emperor Toba to fall ill. So how do we transform the name to make it more DBZ-like? We think maybe Maemo? That's got a nice ring to it. And if you say it with a devilish tone, Maemo, it sounds particularly sinister, like a ghostly drawl. Maemo. And just like the kitsune of legend, our demoness would be fiercely intelligent, manipulative, and powerful. I quite like this one. Now, number 2, the Makaioshim. The two races often appear as the same in some sources, but in this case, we're referring to someone who used to be a Kai and has fallen from grace since. The closest you're going to be getting to a fallen angel archetype in Dragon Ball. They're often referred to as a species and other times as a race, so it can be very confusing. So, just like the Kai who had gotten corrupted and had fallen from grace, this one has a figure of a satyr, originally just a dwarf-like being who accompanied the Greek god Dionysus, a pretty carefree musical soul, often associated with the wild, who was subsequently readapted by the Romans to be fauns. Fauns had half goat or half donkey-like properties and were presented as tricksters, often wise but very mischievous. Christianity then turned that on its head and attributed a lot of those qualities to, you guessed it, a traditional representation of the devil. Not Broly, the actual devil. And those devils came from goats. So what are we going to do with all of this information at our disposal? Well, our ex-Kai doesn't resemble a Kai anymore, not really. I mean, after eons of disassociation, I think a very hostile environment too, that would reconfigure your appearance a bit. Plus, they'd probably not want to identify as an angel anymore anyway. So they would have goat-like legs and hooves. But in his base form, he looks particularly harmless, wearing a robe over his body, and having a very friendly smile that could easily throw you for a loop thinking, oh, they're not so bad actually. He would have small horns, but they would be discreet, hardly visible amongst his spiky white hair, with a style maybe similar to Yamcha's from the Cell Saga. He would also have a light brownish skin tone and in general look like some sort of a helpful, mentor-like creature. You'd have no idea of his true intentions. And upon first glance, you would wonder why this creature could have the capability of acting like a true demon or a Makaioshim. However, you should never judge a book by its cover. His true form would be much more jacked, not unlike Master Roshi, bigger shoulders than even Tenshinhan, with his horns becoming much more prominent in his design. Also, he would have a tattooed bare chest and a rather charming smile, much more sinister than their original version, but still enough to catch your eye and draw your attention. This fellow would be extremely cordial and polite, going as far as complimenting his opponent's strength and power, not entirely dissimilar to a certain little Ice Lane being that we're all familiar with. And while he would not have any flashy special abilities per se, he'd be a true martial arts master, capable of creating illusions of himself and moving incredibly fast, despite his apparent bulk. Think Broly. We would name him after a very notorious Oni, the Shuten Doji, who used to be a fallen monk, with a certain weakness to drinks and pranks, which kinda connects to his satyr origins too. And after a few changes to the name, we go with the likes of Shuji. It's nice, short, and has a connection to that rather interesting Oni. Now, last, but in no means least, the third one, with the weird powers. Again, Pazuzu kinda fits within that territory, but we didn't want to just recycle Pazuzu again. We wanted to have more ideas that could come up with something entirely new for this instead of just using that other one. Go watch our original video for the specs on him. Marids. They are pretty interesting creatures from pre-Islamic Arabian traditions, powerful shapeshifters, said to be able to infiltrate angels and predict the future. They're often associated with the element of water in popular culture. They're often described to be the most powerful type of jinn, and ones that are the most arrogant and proud. Basically, they are strong and they will not stop going on about it. So, what are we going to do with that then? We don't have many evil shapeshifters in Dragon Ball, and we think it would be nice to add one that could be a serious threat to the party, and perhaps maybe something that could involve, I don't know, Poir in some way? Give him something to do? Perhaps maybe in his community, Poir's, this could be the stuff of legend, this person. Fairy tales, and only our cat dude could tell us the means to stop it potentially. In his natural form, this enemy would be a liquid-like entity, resembling an angel with its ethereal nature. Whilst the likes of Boo had a more gooey-like texture, this evildoer would be more water-like, very malleable and softer looking. Not unlike Magikaio from Universe 3, but much more competent and had much more of a spirit. The main gimmick of this one would be its ability of impersonating other fighters incredibly well, going so far as managing to figure out their techniques without any need of gathering information. You just have to look at them, much like Goku. He could just take a gander at a particular being and just copy them wholesale. Appearance, techniques, backstory and all. Now, unlike 7-3, he would not be limited to just having 3 sets of powers for a short time. This creature would be distrusted even by other demons and considered to be overly confident and power-hungry. Of course, other demons would not like the idea of their own powers being copied and used without their knowledge, or this person taking the credit for something they might have done. And of course, losing out on said credit too. We would name it after the third evil of Japan, Emperor Sutoku, a corrupted ruler who cursed his successor and the entirety of his former kingdom, banished, cast away, and forced to become a monk. Basically a very petty man. After he died, he transformed into a demonic entity. As you do. The name of our guy? Sutoku. He was basically a regular Demon Realm person, but tried to overthrow Universe 13's Demon King, which caused the other beings like him to curse him, turning him into a bottle of ultra-cursed water. However, he was able to regain his old form, now derived from water, and use this to his advantage. After a temporary truce with the Kais and Medea, the divine beings are able to contain him in a special flask, where he has remained for thousands of years. That is until Shuji and Maemo decide that it might be a good idea to set him free in order to take control over not only the demon realm, but the entirety of Universe 13. And that's it, our new demonic trio. We hope you guys like it, and we shall return to our regular Builder series with a new villain for Dragon Ball Z next time out. Leave a comment below, and let's get this discussion going. And I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!